Over the last 15 years as an investor, I've tried everything from renovating, knocking down and rebuilding houses, subdivisions, Airbnbs, houses with granny flats, brand new houses with granny flats, and a whole bunch of other advanced property investment strategies. Now, what I've learned from doing so many different strategies and putting so much of my own money on the line, sometimes winning and sometimes losing with that money, is 5 super advanced strategies that can take you from where you are to financial freedom and choices sooner in the future. Now, the first strategy I wanted to talk about today is the duplex, which you can pretty much do in any major capital city or regional market around Australia at the moment. Obviously, making sure you're working with the town planner and in line with the local town plan. Now, the 3 different ways that duplexes can work are pretty simple. You could go buy a property, knock it down, and build 2 houses side by side or back to back. The second way would be to buy an existing home on the front of a block and then do what's called a battle axe, where you build a driveway down the side and build a brand new home out the back. The last way, which is also super popular, is buying something like a corner block with a house on one side and adding a home directly next to it. But regardless of which strategy you use for your duplex project, the benefit is you buy one piece of land and end up with 2 houses in the future. Now, we've been helping a number of clients execute this strategy in Queensland at the moment. An example might be going down there, South Brisbane, and looking at one of those suburbs, sort of 19 to 30 k's from the city. Now, what we want is a nice big 700 square metre piece of land with a nice big 15 or 20 metre frontage. Now, in the current market, we should be able to snag something or find something for around about that 750k mark, which is an established home at the front of the block. The next step, once you've found that incredible site, is to then work in with your certified town planner and builder to create a design and a plan that works for the site. So let's say we bought the house for 750k, and then the council contribution costs, town planning, certification and building costs cost an extra 450k, and that would be to build a beautiful brand new 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage home out the back. So you're coming into the project for about $1.2 million in total. So once you've completed the project sort of 6, 9 or 12 months down the track, like my brother Simon is at the moment, you should be able to get a valuation or a resale on the front home for between 650 and 700k, and a revaluation or resale on the back property of about 750k as well. Meaning that the total value of the property on completion is about that 1,450k, giving you around about $250,000 upside in a 6 to 12 month period. Now, once you've completed the project, you have a whole bunch of different options. You could keep them both, get them rented out and get tax depreciation schedules to save some money at tax time using a company like BMT Tax Depreciation, for example. Alternatively, you could keep one, sell one. Some people live in one and sell one, or live in one and keep one, or potentially I've seen people sell them both depending on their personal financial position. But a duplex strategy has been working extremely well in Sydney and Melbourne for the last 15 years and is working beautifully in Brisbane right now. Now, the second advanced strategy is something that I've done personally as well, and that is buying an established existing home and then building a brand new granny flat. Now, not only do you get the benefits of long-term capital growth as well as cash flow, but because the brand new granny flat is obviously new, we get the benefit of tax depreciation schedules as well. Now, again, the ideal site could be in one of the different markets in Australia. It's important to note that different cities and different regional markets have different town plans. Some of them love houses with granny flats and some of them don't at the moment. So before you rush in and do this type of strategy, definitely talk to the local council and a town planner to make sure that you can do it before you buy it. Now, an example of this working up here in Brisbane at the moment would be to go out there and buy a nice big 600 square metre plus piece of land, but we've bought blocks up to 1,000 square meters for clients as well, with an established, good quality property that you can hold long-term on the front for somewhere between that 700 and 750k mark. Now, that property, depending on if you give it a bit of a renovation or if it's already been renovated to sell, should rent for between $550 and about $600 per week on its own. Now, then what we do once we've got that front property rented out, and obviously we want to put some special conditions in the tenancy agreement to make sure that the tenant renting that property knows that you're going to build a granny flat in the future on the back of the property, is we get the front home rented out so we're not losing cash flow and we can cover our home loan. And then over about a 3 to 6 month period, we build a beautiful brand new 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, tiny home or granny flat out in the back for around about that 230K. Now, what's phenomenal about these granny flats is, from my personal experience, I'm not only getting about $10,000 to $12,000 per year in tax depreciation benefits from my BMT tax report in the first 5 years, but I'm also getting somewhere between $420 and $520 a week in cash flow from the property, which is a phenomenal return on a property investment. So for this type of project with the house and the granny flat, you're looking at about $930,000 in total, and somewhere between $1,000 and $1,050 per week, plus the tax benefits, which, as I said, can give you that sort of holy grail of long-term growth if you hold it for 15 years, great cash flow and some tax benefits as well. Now, the third advanced property strategy is one of my personal favorites. And if you looked at my personal property portfolio, it's made up of this type of asset. And that is going out there and buying a beautiful big piece of land between that 500 and 1,000 square meter mark, and then building a beautiful big 4-bedroom home with a 2-bedroom granny flat. So this strategy is called a brand new dual income property. Now, we've helped a number of clients execute this strategy recently. So the idea would again be going out there and buying at least a 600 square meter block. Again, ticking all of the long-term goals. We don't want to be in monster greenfield sites in the absolute middle of nowhere or really bespoke regional markets. We're talking major metro markets like the capital cities around Australia, or the major regional markets like the Sunshine Coast, etc. in Australia. Now, on top of that, we want good land size, we want quiet streets, we want good infrastructure, we want it to be close to schools, close to shops, close to jobs, close to transport, including train lines, as well as good highways to get people into the CBDs or the major regional markets as quickly as possible. Now, an example that we just helped a number of our clients complete was a $450,000 land purchase up here in Brisbane, as well as the Sunshine Coast. And then we go out there and for $550,000, we build a beautiful large 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage home with either a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom granny flat. Now, for those of you who haven't seen this before, it looks like one normal property from the street, but effectively you've got the 4-bedroom home down one side, separated by a firewall with its own access, and then you've got the 1 or the 2-bedroom granny flat on the other side with its own access, separated by the firewall. We've also got a fence running down the backyard, so they have their own backyards, their own courtyards, their own kitchens, and it really is just like having a duplex or 2 properties side by side. The only difference between the brand new dual income property like this one versus a duplex or a subdivision is, with a duplex or subdivision, you can title them and sell them separately on completion, where with this project, you've got to sell the property to one person in the future under one title. So that's the key difference. But because of that, it can be very easily certified and you don't have to pay the monster council contribution fees you might do on a subdivision or a duplex. So for $450K for the land and $550K for the build, give or take, the last few that we've done have actually been well below the $1 million mark, but I'm just saying worst case scenario at the moment. So for $1 million, you're getting a beautiful new property. And for that, we should be getting $600 to $650 a week in rent for the brand new 4-bedroom home, and somewhere between $420 and $520 a week in rent for the 2-bedroom granny flat. So we're looking at well over $1,000 a week in rent. And then because of this beautiful thing that the Australian government's giving investors at the moment, which is encouraging people like myself and yourself to build, you've got the tax depreciation benefits as well. Now, on the last property that I built, which was over $500,000, I think for the first 3 to 5 years, I was getting over $15,000 per year in tax back. And then over the 30 years after that, I was still getting around about $10,000 to $7,500 per year, which was a phenomenal benefit on top of the long-term growth and the great cash flow. But one of the things I like about this is you have control. So you can design the 4-bedroom home to your taste. You can design the 2-bedroom granny flat to your taste. Because it's new, it's larger, it's more modern. You can make something that's extremely low maintenance and timeless. And because of that, you attract high quality tenants because you don't get people coming in there that want to trash the place, or at least that's what we hope. Now, the fourth strategy that I love in this current market, whether that's in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, or Brisbane, is kind of a major renovation. So we've all seen properties, or we've all probably done properties where you go out there and you buy a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom house and you just put a little bit of a cosmetic reno or a bit of lipstick on the property. So that might be things like flooring, like maybe if you're holding the property longer term, you want to put some timber look vinyl flooring down, you might repaint, you might put in some new lights, some new door handles, some new curtains or window finishes. You might give the outside of the property a bit of a clean up, like a high pressure wash, a bit of a repaint, and get stuck into the gardens. And that's sort of, your generic, simple cosmetic reno that doesn't take a lot of time and doesn't cost a lot of money. But there are also more advanced strategies for renovations that we've helped clients do, or that I've done personally in the past. Now, one of my favorites where I think there's really good short-term equity upside in the right suburb or the right market would be getting a much larger, oversized 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home that's got a really big inner floor plan. Like it might have a massive media room, an extra large garage. It might have an oversized laundry or oversized bathroom. It might just have really, really big living spaces that don't necessarily need to be there. And what we do is we convert that 3-bedroom home underneath the existing roof line into a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. Now, if you want to layer that strategy with the cosmetic renovation, you can do that. It could just be that sort of lipstick, simple strategy that I talked about a moment ago, or you could go further into completely getting rid of that first bathroom. And then, as I said, cutting that bathroom into 2, or figuring out a way to do that in the home, and having 2 beautiful brand new bathrooms. You could go into rendering or doing something nice outside with the brickwork. Some people also put in new kitchens. Now, generally I would say that if you're planning on buying a property and doing all this work to it just to hold it for 15 years, I'd say hold off. A better strategy for this sort of thing is to do this sort of work if 1, you need equity so that you can keep moving forward, or 2, you're just about to sell the property and you want to get the maximum return for that property just before you do. Now, some great places to do this are in the beachside suburbs of Sydney, the inner city suburbs of Sydney, same with Melbourne or Brisbane at the moment. But in this video, I'll use an example of a beachside suburb in South Brisbane, which statistically speaking is one of the most undervalued pockets of the east coast of Australia right now on the water. So what we might do is go buy one of the 3-bedroom, 1 or 2 bathroom houses down there, brick and tile on a nice big 600 to 700 square metre piece of land, walking distance to the water, that's in okay condition. And what we might do is give it a bit of a repaint, chuck some flooring in, and then put a tenant in for the next 5 or 10 years. And the reason I like these areas is because according to 7 different analysts in the Australian Financial Review, they're expecting the average property in these areas to go from $800K today to somewhere between $1.3 and $1.5 million by the Olympic Games, which is 7 or 8 years away from the time of recording this video. Now, that is a really, really big amount of natural capital growth. We're talking about somewhere between 500 and 700K. But then if you layer that with a cosmetic renovation and a small internal structural renovation, then you might be able to exit that property at that time for significantly above that level, or create something that is really, really rentable, that's got great upside in it, and you can split that out for more deposits on future properties, or potentially do what I've done and keep a property like that, ride the market up, sell it, pay the tax on it, and then use that big chunk to either reinvest or to pay down a big chunk of money on your own home so that you can get free and choices in your life much, much sooner. Now, the 5th and final advanced property strategy that I wanted to talk about today is something that I've done personally up here in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast twice. It is by far the most advanced of these strategies that I've executed. It requires a fair bit of cash up front, a lot of time up front and ongoing, and has much, much higher volatility and risk. And that strategy is an advanced Airbnb strategy, which sort of pulls a few of these different ideas together. So effectively, the way that this strategy worked for me personally was to go out there and buy a nice big piece of land, close to the beach, basically walking distance to the beach on the sunny coast. Now, obviously it was a lot cheaper to do this pre-COVID. Post-COVID, the Sunshine Coast, like Sydney, like parts of Melbourne, like parts of the Gold Coast and Byron Bay has absolutely exploded during that time. But effectively what I did was effectively go out there and buy a piece of land. Now it's very, very important with this strategy that you work with the town planner and the local council to make sure that you do this in the right zone, because there's many, many zones around Australia where they don't like this sort of accommodation, this short-term accommodation in that zone area. And each different state in Australia has very, very different Airbnb policy as well as many different council areas. So for example, Byron, Noosa, Manly on the northern beaches of Sydney have very, very different policies compared to other parts of Australia. Even the Gold Coast, the Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast, the Noosa have completely different planning policies as well. So it is one that you really want to research before you go into the market. But effectively what I did is I got this beautiful big 900 to 1,000 square meter piece of land, walking distance to the beach with a beautiful big frontage. And I built a brand new 3-bedroom home. The mistake that I made is I had my Airbnb cap on, and so I wasn't really thinking about valuation or resale. If I was doing it again, even though the difference in nightly rates for a 3-bedroom versus a 4 or 5-bedroom home in the suburb might not have been great, the difference on valuations, on tax benefits and on resale to a family would have been much, much better. So the lesson I learned is I needed to lay the strategy more and think about it as a standalone investment plus short-term accommodation. But I end up with a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house with a nice big yard and a couple of car spaces and a little plunge pool on the front side, which I lease short-term on Airbnb. Now, at the moment, it gives me about $120,000 per year of income just from that 3-bedroom property, plus about an extra 20 to 25 grand a year in cleaning fees as well. And then what I built under the roofline, similar to Idea 3, which is the brand new house and granny flat, was a 2-bedroom granny flat with a beautiful big deck and its own backyard and plunge pool as well. Now, because of the zoning in this part of the council area on the sunny coast, I wasn't able to let that one to short-term Airbnb. So what I did is rent that back dwelling out to a long-term tenant for a further $35,000 per year or $700 per week. So the total return on this property is somewhere between $150,000 and $180,000 per year, depending on the year, which is absolutely phenomenal. The market has also gone up in value because it's a high quality beachside area, and the tax benefits on this sort of property are phenomenal as well. Now, those big numbers might sound fantastic and everyone's like, well, I can just go out there and get one of those properties, but it is not that easy, as you guys would know. Obviously, it's a very, very, very high entry point, buying land or knocking down a house and then building a brand new dual income. It's very expensive setting up the properties. Every single week, I have to pay for things like the lawns to be done, pools to be cleaned, cleaners that come through the property. I also have to remulch, repaint the properties once every couple of years, high pressure wash the properties every year. I pay for all the electricity, all the water, all the rates out of my own pocket. I also put Netflix on and internet on as well. So as you can see, when you take out all of those costs, including furniture as well and the wear and tear on the property, as well as maintenance and management too, all of a sudden that beautiful big gross number is a much more realistic net number. Now, for me personally, it's just such an active strategy in the setup as well as the management that I've actually sold one of them recently, and I don't plan on doing this as a strategy for myself anymore. At the time, I was at a stage of life where I really wanted to create a business outside of my day job that would give me great income. And I thought, well, if we cleaned it ourselves, if we managed it ourselves, it would spray off good income, and it absolutely would. I've seen people do this strategy that are at a different stage of life where one partner's not working and they can manage it themselves, and they can clean it themselves, save a lot of money and make a lot of money. But for me and my wife with young kids, young businesses, it's just such an active strategy, and to be honest, a bit of a ball ache. And so we're gonna keep one of them because it's good as a long-term investment, but we've just sold the other one because I couldn't be bothered for the cash flow. I'd rather just have my houses and granny flats or my really high quality single income houses in the right markets at the right time, longer term. You know, one of the things that I like about property the most is there's just so many different ways that you can go from where you are to where you want to be. And we didn't even talk today about standard single income homes, subdivisions, triplexes, quad sets, things like townhouses, or even more of the development advanced strategies out there in the market as well. But I think between these ideas of the duplex, the existing house with a brand new granny flat, the brand new house with a brand new granny flat type vibe, a major renovation which factors in some cosmetic and some structural stuff down the line, or Airbnb, are 5 strategies that I've personally done that have all worked out to varying degrees in different ways. Looking back, we don't always have to employ such advanced strategies to our properties. Sometimes simply buying in Sydney in 2015 and holding till now and doubling your money would be absolutely better than anything else I could have done. And if I was looking back, sometimes maybe I wouldn't have gone out there and done all of these things because I wanted to learn them all with my own money. I probably would have been better off just buying a couple of houses when they were cheap on the beach in Sydney 10, 15 years ago and holding them to this point. But that has been my journey. I absolutely love this stuff. Good luck with executing these strategies. And the number one tip is just stay safe with them. Make sure you work with licensed builders and tradespeople, solicitors, town planners, certifiers, tax depreciation people. And as always, the more people you consult on this type of strategy, the better you're going to be. So make sure you talk to your accountants, your buyer's agent, or your financial advisors, as well as your partner or some family members, just to make sure that you're heading in the right direction, and you can save yourself from some of the big mistakes that I've made. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Look forward to catching up soon. G'day guys, my name's Ben and I'm the director here at Pumped on Property, and I just want to say a massive thank you for watching our content today. Now, if you're thinking about buying an investment property in the next 3 to 12 months, then the team and I would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. In that session, we can talk about exactly where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term, and we can deeply educate you on the Australian market. And then you can take that information and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or potentially become one of the small number of clients that we work with each week. To book your session, all you have to do is go to www.pumpedonproperty.com and click that book your free strategy session button. But either way, we wish you all the best on your journey as an investor to financial freedom.